Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia Podcast Network. My name is Poletti. Joining me today is Kieran Yap. Kieran, we've just had a massive, insane month of football, and as we sort of slowly worked our way back into dub mode, it's just gotten crazier and crazier in the run into finals, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so it's sort of, aside from the Premiership being decided a week early, it's almost the perfect end of the season with almost everyone with something to play for, except for the bottom three teams, really. I think the Jets still have a mathematical chance if everything goes right. I don't think anyone's really out of it except Sydney and Western Sydney, are they?
I know the Newcastle Jets are out of it as well, unfortunately. The results didn't quite go their way to sort of see them potentially be able to sneak their way into six. But yeah, so 8 through first, so that's what? That's Perth Glory, that's Victory, that's Mariners. Like, none of them are guaranteed to make finals. And even Brisbane, Brisbane Raw are safe, but they could fall to 6 pending other results.
Yeah, there's a lot still to play for in the last round, even though the title's been decided. And that's kind of what you want. That's like, if the APL could decide a final round of the season, this would be pretty close to what they'd want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start in Melbourne. We'll go to the City Blue side of Melbourne first. Back-to-back premierships. And, of course, they have secured AFC Women's Champions League football for another season. Not that they would have known that they won it at the time that they won it, because they were actually competing in their Women's Champions League quarter-final against Uzbekistani side PFC Nasaf, who made Melbourne City work for it, Kieran. It was only 2-1 to City in the end. A late winner from Chinaza Uchendu. The difference between the two sides. And, I don't want to say un-City-like performance, because it's used to what we're seeing, but I think, it was a little bit more difficult than what a lot of people expected, and yeah, I don't know. It's tough, right? Because you've got this side that makes up most of the Uzbekistan women's national team, or at least half of the Uzbekistan women's national team, who've just been here for the Asian Cup, who have had time to adapt to Australian conditions. And so I think that helped. But, for Melbourne City, their class just showed through.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the impressive thing about City's evolution over the past few seasons. Under Dario Vidosic, they were pretty much sweeping everyone before them easily. They had all the ball, all the game, and with or without Holly Mack in the team, they were still scoring goals. They were essentially, literally unstoppable until the grand final against Sydney, really. But, last season, almost similar, but other teams started to catch up a little bit. This season, they've had to do it a little bit harder. And what's been good about them is when they're challenged, they can dig a little bit deeper. They can win ugly in a way they couldn't do in that grand final they lost to Sydney. When things aren't quite going their way, they can switch gears. They can play a different way. They can score a scrappy goal that they didn't. They used to play beautiful football, but if they couldn't play beautiful football, they were vulnerable. And now you get the feeling that's kind of not that was more of a myth than anything, because when they've been tested, they've been able to grow into that and fight. And that goal from Inchendu, I was sort of been a bit harsh on her all season, because I thought I have high expectations of international strikers, especially if a club's signing you to come from overseas, you better be scoring almost every week, really. You should be better than every option locally that's available to City. And City, everyone's available to them. So I didn't think she was really delivering, but that goal in the 90th minute, not an easy finish, even though it was close range in. I think that's essentially just justified signing her, because what they earn money from that's well above and beyond whatever they invested to bring her over.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, because we hadn't seen a ton of her this season. Sort of, she's been in and around the lineup, sort of been, that off the bench option, maybe starting the odd game here or there. I think, it might have just taken her a little bit more time to, I guess, sort of, build in to being an A-League women footballer, being a Melbourne City footballer, because we know the high standards that this, not only Matriciani but the City Football Group, expect of their footballers. What I thought was interesting, I'll stick with Uchendu for a moment here, is given the fact that she's unless any potential appeal is successful, she's not going to be able to play a single A-League women game for the rest of the season. Are you surprised by Matriciani's decision to not start her and bring her off the bench? Like, because I would have thought the option here, and I know this is a must-win game, and I know you want to make sure you got the result locked up, but surely you basically take this game and you just, for lack of a better term, run her into the ground because she's got the next month off?
Yeah, maybe. I think it could have been some sort of player management thing that maybe after the situation with Western Sydney, which is still really unclear exactly what happened, and she departed the field as about as unsportsmanlily as you possibly could without shoving the ref directly. I think maybe it was maybe a trust issue in a must-win game, can't afford another blow-up, or maybe it was to leave it so when you put her on, you can say, right, now I trust you, deliver. Could have been anything like that. It could have just been basically that they started with their best front three that they had available in Holly Mack, Riley Henry, and I think it was 18 Keane on the other side. That's 2.5 internationals, really. You got Riley Henry and Holly Mack are both Cat Matildas, and 18 Keane's, I think, on her way. I wouldn't be surprised to see her name in the squad tomorrow as the time we record, because I think she's been excellent for City this season, and that's a very powerful, very strong, very fast front three, and Holly Mack put her body on the line to score the goal. So I think, I mean, whether you start in Chengdu or not, the plan worked. Whatever the exact details of the plan were, that worked. One striker scored, the substitute striker scored. That works out perfectly for City.
It does. One potential concern out of this game, Holly McNamara, another concussion.
We're not concerned about Holly Mack. It's just the state of affairs. Just yeah.
It's just, I don't know. She can't stay fit, can she? Like, it's like I think it's starting to become like a legitimate concern with Holly McNamara. Like whether it's the ACL injuries and very serious things, but like just your best ability is availability, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'll diminish her appeal to any overseas clubs, given that she's out of contract at the end of the season and what she can do at her best. I don't know. Maybe it might make clubs just a little bit wary.
I don't know. I hope not. I think it's time for her to move overseas. I don't see how she can get much better than she has been the last couple of seasons in Australia. And she's kind of, I don't say she's reached her ceiling, but she feels that she's at that sort of spot that like Kyra Cooney Cross were at the time when they moved over, and she's better than some other players were when they moved over. So I think now's the time. But she's on a good thing at City. Like the team's built around her. They're playing Champions League. That's a handy chunk of pocket money as well if they do well on that. That exceeds the wage you get at some European clubs. So who knows? I think for the good of Australian football in general, she should move. For the benefit of what she can accomplish as an individual, she'll probably hit a higher ceiling overseas. But we don't even know if anyone's interested yet. Like it's yeah, who knows? But I don't think it'll affect any major interest from clubs. I think that her stats and her highlights reel, which is really what clubs recruit off now, they speak for themselves.
Yeah, they certainly do. So Melbourne City, their Asian AFC Women's Champions League semi-final match will be against Tokyo Verde Bellezza. That taking place on the 20th of May at the Suwon Sports Complex. And then the other semi-final is Nagoyang versus Suwon. Also on the same date, and the winners of those two games will play off in the final at the end of May. We'll move back, our focus on the dub now, and we'll stay with the other side of Melbourne, but come back to Sydney for that game. Sydney FC 2, Melbourne Victory 1. This game, yeah, all three goals coming off errors and turnovers, and this looked like, this was a game where it was very clear both of these sides are just having bad seasons, and neither looked like they wanted to play finals. I mean, Sydney can't. Melbourne Victory could have put themselves in the six with a win. They look like they want their seasons to be done, right?
Nothing's clicked for Victory this season. I mean, Sydney have not had the pieces to really have a good season. I mean, they've had a 14-year-old centre back turn midfielder. They've had no experienced centre forward. They've had players in and out through international duty and injury, and Charlotte McLean coming in for 1 game at the end, 2 games at the end. Sorry, but Victory have had all the pieces of the puzzle there. Like that's if you were to assemble a team on say Football Manager or just an all-star squad to play Chelsea, that at the pre-season Victory side would have looked like something that could feasibly be that. I think the defense has been they haven't been overly leaky. They've conceded more than they did last season, but they haven't been thrashed in any games really. The game against the Mariners was pretty bad when they conceded 3, but they recovered from that. But that was also the last game that really the forward line functioned the way that you'd want it to, where they were able to score goals. And that's probably been their issue this year. They haven't been able to really move the ball through midfield to create quick chances, and they haven't been able to finish them. They signed Kenna White from the Hungarian League. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I might as well be honest at this point in the season. I don't think she's the sort of signing you make when you want to win trophies, and finishing top in the A-League Women's is probably more important than grand finals now with the Champions League as a carrot. So she feels like the sort of player that you'd sign if you were like Western Sydney, you know what I mean? And just trying to try something. But, if someone was to leave Melbourne Victory, say like Alana Murphy was to leave Melbourne Victory for the Hungarian League, you'd be like, what? What are you doing? Like that's not a move that makes sense. So conversely, the opposite, if you're going to sign a player from that league, they better be unbelievable. And she scored against the bottom half of the table, struggled against the better teams. Like I said before, I'm harsh on international strikers. They better be better than the local alternative. And I think that's been a big problem for Victory this season. They haven't been able to create and score enough half chances. I don't understand why Holly Furphy's been moved from the left flank to the right. She's a right footer, but she scored a lot of goals coming off that left flank last season. And we haven't toyed around enough with that. We've kind of left it as it is with Lowe, Furphy, White, and Sakalis without really changing them up and seeing if different combinations or different positioning works with them. And it's just kind of stayed that way all season. That's why I think things haven't really improved beyond a slow jog for Victory. It started off okay and never really got beyond that. So now they're hoping that they can get results they need against Perth away, which is tricky, and hoping that other teams do them a favour. Sydney FC do them a favour this weekend, which is unlikely, even with a depleted Mariners side.
Yeah, so Melbourne Victory need to win against Perth Glory, as you said. Sydney FC would then also need to win against the Central Coast Mariners. For Perth Glory, if they win, they would need Sydney FC to thump the Mariners as well as put on quite a few goals themselves. So Perth Glory still mathematically alive, not entirely. Melbourne Victory. See, this is, like I said, you've kind of just talked through some of their problems there. We know they had a little bit of a mixed start to the season, and I think back to all the injuries they had. Like I'm looking at a graphic here that I had saved on my phone from Dub Zone. Grace Maher missed a round or two. Taylor Ray was out for 4 weeks with a foot injury. Chelsea Blissett was out with a back injury. Nikki Flannery was out with a hamstring. Sienna Silvesca had an undisclosed injury. And I'm not necessarily saying that the injuries are the entire problem, and maybe this is a question best left for the Dubcast season review episode proper. And I can't believe I'm even asking this. Has Jeff Hopkins lost his touch? Like, it seems weird to say for a side that made the grand final last year and were a penalty shootout away from winning the championship. But it hasn't worked this season for the Victory. It hasn't worked this season.
No, it hasn't. And I think the basic issue is they haven't tried enough things to make it work. Chelsea Blissett was signed knowing she's injured a lot of the time in most seasons. A couple of those were unlucky, but for most of the season they've had, with the exception of Flannery, a pretty, even if you discount Flannery and Silvesca's injuries and absences, they're still a very strong team there that should be able to beat Sydney FC. Like the team they put out last week, I think it really is down to selection and confidence and momentum. Like Alana Ancheski was signed as a forward, was asked to fill in at left back last season, did a really good job of it, got us into the grand final. She was one of our better players on the day, despite the way it ended. And then this season, she gets instead of moved up forward when we need goals, she gets moved to the bench for Blissett when Blissett's fit. It's that sort of stuff there that just doesn't really spark a lot of energy and momentum in the squad. You do the right thing by the team and you don't get rewarded for it. I think they just need a bit of a breather. And I can't speak for all Victory fans, but there's a few of them out there that I know for a fact would kind of not be upset if we didn't make finals because we need a bit of a reset. I'm saying we because I'm in a lot of Victory fan group chats, and I'm a member, for full disclosure. But really, he hasn't lost his touch. He needs to find his groove back, if that makes sense.
No, that absolutely makes sense. Last thing I want to touch on from this game, Sydney FC need a result this weekend, whether that be a win or a draw against the Mariners to avoid what would be the club's first ever wooden spoon. Just the second time, of course, they've missed finals after last year. Can they do it? Can they avoid the wooden spoon? Because I'm not convinced.
What do they actually
They just need a point. They just need a point because the Wanderers don't play.
Yeah, they can, only because the Mariners don't have much teeth up forward without Prakash Trimis, now Rasmussen. There's Izzy Gomez as well is missing from this game of suspension. There's a lot missing from the Mariners, and Sydney Mariners could feasibly score one goal without those players there. I don't know if they can score two, because it even affects their set pieces. Even affects you can't even say they'll stick a couple on the corners because that's two corner takers gone as well, and Rasmussen, who was a major presence in that attack. So I don't know if the Mariners can score two. I think Sydney's can score at least one. So I think they can get the draw they need. From a Victory perspective, it'd be pretty funny if they won. But on the balance of things, I think Mariners kind of deserve to be in the six ahead of Melbourne Victory because the players that they're missing, with the exception of Gomez, that's being punished essentially for success. Like Trimis and Prakash have been outstanding this season. They've been given a chance, been given responsibility, and they were the young Matildas where they should be. But yeah, the Mariners are unlucky because of that. So I'd like to see those players play finals for the good of Australian national team development as well and see what they can do. So I hope that Sydney don't beat the Mariners, but it's possible they can because they have more firepower, and that's been rare for them this season.
It has indeed. We'll head up to Brisbane now. Brisbane Roar 5, Perth Glory 2, a game which essentially ended Perth Glory's finals hopes. As we touched on, mathematically possible, but a lot has to go their way. This game looked like it was going to get interesting at halftime. A very late goal to Perth Glory to make it 2-1. Half the deficit essentially, and then it took Brisbane Roar a little bit, but they really turned on the afterburners in the second half, Kieran, and just ran away with this game.
Yeah, Brisbane are a funny team, aren't they? Like, you never know what you're going to get with them. It's a tough trip too for Glory, so I think that plays into it a bit. I've heard that's one of the toughest trips in football to go from Perth to Brisbane and vice versa, because it's not only a long flight, you've got the time zone differences, which is different again from us. So there's a lot that goes into those games, especially for part-time players. But Brisbane at home, they can be good, and they've been good this season. They just had a bad patch at the wrong time like they did last year, and they might have recovered from it. Looks like they have.
Yeah, I know we were questioning at some point, myself and Burke, were the injuries just going to keep playing a factor, because they're they started to fall away, but they've come good at the right end of the season, which is only a good thing for the Raw. Finals pretty well safe. I'm pretty sure mathematically maybe they can drop out, but I'd be surprised if they do. They get a point, they secure finals. They've got the game against Canberra United, who'll be looking to bounce back this weekend. So I very much like that for the Raw. Should be a good game. I like the way they did this, or the way they performed in this game. Slight concern, I think. I really don't like pointing out player mistakes, particularly given we know the stress and the demands that the players are under. But Chloe Lincoln, she did so well at the Asian Cup in the two games she was called upon, and then just it's kind of like she just had another couple of howlers in this game. Like it seems like A-League women form, howlers. Play for national team, prime Mackenzie Arnold, right?
That's the thing with Chloe Lincoln, is that it turns me into a bit of a hypocrite, because I'm like big on youth team form with the national sides, the under-20s, the under-23s being rewarded by the senior team. If If you play really well for those two, you should get a chance at senior football, because that's the best gauge we have at the moment for judging players if they're ready for the national team. It goes back to Carly Roseback and getting in the 2019 World Cup squad based purely on the Under-20 Asian Cup, nothing else. So Chloe Lincoln's form for the youth national teams has been outstanding for a couple of years now. So on that basis, yeah, she should have been in that national team squad. But yeah, her form at W League level, A League Women level, has been patchy at best. And I think she gets more shots and has to make more decisions at club level than she did in either of those two Asian Cup games. And that was my concern in the Asian Cup, is that she was fine if people are taking quick shots. Pot shots is a good reflex keeper. But when the ball's high or when someone's running at her and she has to make a choice about whether to stay or go or whether to put her hands up and get it, it can be a little bit shaky because she's still really young. She's got a lot of talent, but those sort of decision-making things usually come with players a lot later on in their career. And keepers can play into their late 30s. So no doubt she's going to be a good keeper one day. Consistency is the issues now, which is that's a 20-year-old goalkeeper. But yeah, I feel bad talking harshly about Chloe Lincoln, but she is in the spotlight now. She's a senior Matilda Asian Cup squad member. She's going to be in that team going forward. We feels pretty secure in that Matilda's lineup as the third keeper. But yeah, Brisbane fans are understandably shaky about when she has to make a choice, basically. It's a high cross, a fast-running player coming at her. Even a back pass, there was a couple of back passes that she didn't look too comfortable in front of. It's, I get why Brisbane fans get nervous.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? But I mean, I think, as you touched on her form there this season, there's a reason she wasn't included in the initial 26 and only came in, when injuries, and, she obviously ended up starting that first game because of the injury to Jada Wyman as well. But, I think, at least for the time being, yeah, she's probably done enough to secure that spot. And I guess we'll find out when Joe Montemuro names his squad for the upcoming FIFA Series games in Kenya. Keep going here with the dub. Newcastle Jets 3, Adelaide United 1. Adelaide United really look like they're missing Fiona Works, don't they, Kieran?
Yeah, I tweeted out less than a month ago, 3 weeks ago, can Adelaide United win the Premiership? Then they lost the game the next day, and Fiona Works was sold right before that to someone in South Korea. I've forgotten the name. It's evaded me now. It's right.
It's Hyundai, Incheon Hyundai Red Angels, I want to say from the top of my head. We talked about this last week. That's right. Yes. Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't really think that league had the money to buy a player still under contract. So that was something I hadn't heard of before. But good for her. I think Adelaide suits her as a club. I think she suits Adelaide. I think they're a perfect match. Sometimes that just happens. So it'll be interesting to see how she goes over there. But yeah, she's a player that elevates that team, and like I said, vice versa. They just bring the best out of each other. So it's a hard adjustment coming into the finals to be missing your best player. But I suppose they just have to treat it like an injury, which they've covered a lot of injuries and absences this season. So they just have to treat it like that. And they've got depth in that side. They don't have the young players don't have a lot of experience, but they've got quality. Millsy Murray hasn't had a really great run this season of chances. She's injured at the moment with an ankle injury, I think. But she's a player who can score goals. They've still got Chelsea Dorber's still a good player. Erin Healy's still an excellent player. They're not dependent on any one footballer. But it's a quick adjustment to have to make to lose your most effective forward coming into the finals when you've got a sniff of a premiership as well. Yeah, really, really unfortunate timing.
But the Jets are fun, man. I don't take anything away from Newcastle. They're so they can give up a lot in a game, but they're always kind of worth watching. So yeah, can't take them lightly either.
No, absolutely, and they're one of those sides that you feel if it was still mathematically possible and they could sneak into 6, like you'd trust them to do, like you trust them to shake up the finals series at in some way, shape, or form. Just on Fiona Worts quickly again, like we saw that season that she went to Sydney, right, where it didn't work out, she didn't click, and then she goes back to Adelaide and just shows her fantastic brilliance again. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how she goes in South Korea. On the Jets side of things, Kelly Brown, a player I absolutely love watching with the double, as well as Josie Allen. It's just a shame again.
She's a star, that kid, Josie Allen.
Yeah. it's just a little bit of a shame that this has come just a little bit too late for the Jets. That they've just had that rough season, and like they usually seem to, and have just lost games that they should have won, and drawn games that they should have won, and they're outside of finals because of it.
Yeah, they always seem to be missing like one top quality player in one end of the field or the other. Like they have Serena Bolden this year, but they did have Melina Ayres back, which made a big difference. We are getting into review territory here, but I think they need like another really good centre back, like a top quality one, just to shore up that team and turn those draws into wins, those scrappy ones. Sophie Hoban has been an excellent player for them this season too. I think she's been one of the best number 10s in the league positionally. And I think there's a few Jets players that when that All-Star squad gets mentioned, they should be in with a look. If it's sort of a popular vote, I don't know if they'll have enough fans to get them in, but they got some real talent there, and hopefully I can keep a few of them together and improve on that squad.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm pretty sure if memory serves me correctly, Stephen Hoyle did get a 2-year contract, so he'll be able to take the data from this year and see who he wants to keep going forward. We'll head to the last two games of the round now. Wellington Phoenix. Let me rephrase that. Western Sydney Wanderers won, defeating Wellington Phoenix 0 at Pararua Park. Western Sydney Wanderers win the Sister City. Western Sydney Wanderers win the Sister City Cup. This is a game that decided the Premiership, as the Wellington Phoenix can no longer mathematically claim the Premiership. I know that Wellington have had, they've really been screwed over by the draw this year, and I think back. Obviously, the game against Sydney, then play the Mariners a few days later. Yes, they get to stay in Australia, but we got to remember the only reason they were playing the Mariners on the Wednesday was because that game was rescheduled from round 5 when, and why the APL scheduled a Wellington Phoenix game during a women's international break, I have no idea, because we know that, half the squad's getting called up to the New Zealand national team. They've had to wait, 4 months to play this game, at the pointy end of the season when they probably needed, that 7 days of rest, and then some ahead of the Western Sydney Wanderers. They looked tired, they looked lethargic, just slow to a lot of balls. And it really feels like for Wellington, who had a legitimate chance 3 weeks ago, or just, before, the Asian Cup break, at claiming the club's first piece of silverware, that they're just sputtering to the finish. And I don't know if that's a concern heading into finals, or if because they've got a short turnaround to Adelaide on Good Friday, whether the fact that they've got players going away in the international break again, if they're just going to get a chance to rest. And the fact, they might get a week off, but do you really trust them to rest, I guess?
I think Wellington or Perth Glory making the top 6 is like a minor miracle, really, just because of their travel schedules. They're at a logistical disadvantage from every other club in the league, except maybe Brisbane. Adelaide fly every second week too, but it's not the same sort of flight as that. So I think running out of steam was inevitable. I did not expect them to lose this game, though. That was a surprise. If someone was to say Western Sydney would decide the Premiership, I would say, fine, someone's going to thrash them and decide the Premiership. I wouldn't think that they were going to pull off an upset victory against the second team on the ladder when they're second from the bottom. That just wasn't in the cards. But anything can happen in this league, and they have some talent at Western Sydney. They just don't have the depth or consistency, because most of them are fairly young. But I think Wellington have done really well regardless of that little slip up, and I think they'll sharpen up by finals. Macy Fraser's back too. That adds a whole other spark to that side. They can score goals. They've looked a little bit sluggish the last few weeks, and I think they'll hit their stride again in finals.
Yeah, for Western Sydney Wanderers, that win gives them a chance to avoid the wooden spoon. So again, they have the bye this week, so it depends on Sydney FC as to which one of the two Sydney sides has the wooden spoon this season. Last game of the round, Central Coast 0, Canberra United 0.
How
I
was
mean,
this
this game
0-0?
had so much potential. This game had so much potential coming into it, and then like this game should have had goals in it, and it just kind of ended up fizzling out.
But this was a really fun game though because both teams were going for the win. I don't know if Canberra really needed it as much as Mariners, but both were really trying to win this game. It was very open. It felt like had the sort of energy of a preseason friendly sort of game. Everyone, but a high intensity version of it. No one was really worrying about defensive structure. No one was trying to stop the other team as much as they were trying to just get over them and beat them. So it was a really fun game to watch. Both keepers were at their best, which is probably how it ended scoreless, because there were chances created. They were attacking all game. I don't know what happened between Beth Gordon and Izzy Gomez. I don't know what happened between Beth Gordon and the referee, but it was odd little patch in the middle there that resulted in some bookings, and it's cost Gomez, I think. But the game kind of had everything except a goal. It was really entertaining, and I was really surprised that someone didn't pinch one. Canberra looked more likely, and I thought Mary Sanish's Flood's shot at the end was definitely going in. But yeah, the goalkeepers both had something to say about that, and they decided the game.
Yeah, I always love a good goalkeeper performance. I think it's it's something worth worth shouting out whenever it happens. Which is always enjoyable to see. I want to just briefly look ahead to the fixtures this week. So as mentioned, we've got Adelaide United versus Wellington Phoenix on Good Friday, April 3rd. That one at 4:50 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Kickoff 4:20 p.m. local time, 6:50 p.m. New Zealand time. A game that could decide, where like who gets the week off and who doesn't. So both sides will absolutely want to try and win that one, followed up by Perth Glory and Melbourne Victory. That game kicking off at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 4 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time at the Sam Kerr Football Centre. I've already talked enough about what's at stake there. We then go to Saturday at 2:15 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. It is the Central Coast Mariners against Sydney FC. That game will be on free-to-air on 10 Drama as well. So plenty of ways to watch that one and get around it. Then it is Canberra United versus Brisbane Roar at McKellar Park at 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Again, Canberra could very well still be fighting for a top 2 finish and a week off in finals. And then on Sunday, the lone game at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, because daylight savings ends, the Newcastle Jets will take on Melbourne City. Really, look, this should be a fun game. The game, did I say Maitland? Yes, Maitland Sports Ground, not the number 2 Sports Ground, so I apologise if I said the number 2 Sports Ground there. I was just expecting it to be at number 2. Should still be a fun game regardless. If you're in the area, I'd definitely recommend going to check it out. Kieran, I'm guessing you'll have your eyes glued to Perth Glory versus Melbourne Victory on Friday night.
Yeah, as I said, I'm one of those Victory fans that kind of, I want us to play finals, but if we don't, it could be for the best. I think we need to take a breath because this season's been a funny one, and I think they need some time to really assess what went right and what went wrong in all areas on and off the pitch. I'll be really invested in the Canberra game. I really want Canberra to do well. This could be the last we see of them still. We don't know. So if they were to have a good run, finish second, push for a grand final spot, they've got the team to do it. They don't have as many stars as the other teams, but they've got a really good squad that's hard to play against. They can rotate players into different positions. Sasha Groves played at least 4 different roles this season for them. Josie Olasino the same. Haley Taylor-Young's played on both sides of the pitch. They're not really relying on Michelle Heyman. They can do the job when she's not there, which is the first time since she's rejoined where that's been the case. Yeah, I would really love for Canberra to do well. If Victory make the finals, I don't know. Is it really worth it at the expense of a Mariners side that's played a lot better this season? I don't know. Sporting, that's the way the league works. We saw that in the men's with Italy not qualifying for the World Cup. You don't win games, you don't get through. And that's the situation there. They haven't won enough games this season, not enough good performances, not enough points earned. Mariners, at this point, deserve it more. But if they can't beat Sydney, then they don't. I mean, it all sounds very simple when you put it like that, but No, my eyes will be glued to the Melbourne Victory game, but my heart will be with the Canberra game.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair way to look at it. For me, I said earlier this season, like, I wanted Canberra to win the Premiership because I felt the only way to sort of guarantee their survival would be that Women's Champions League money. That being said, if they go on and make the grand final, not just make the grand final, but find a way to win the grand final, look, I don't think you can exactly not have the champions coming back to defend their crown. So it might be just a backdoor way to hopefully try and we'll have Canberra around for another season.
Makes it more appealing for a new owner as well.
Exactly. Absolutely love Canberra. An inaugural team in the league. We've spoken plenty about it, and I'm sure we'll speak more about it into the not too distant future. Last thing I wanted to touch on here is a little bit of NPL Victoria action. Kieran, I know you were across this game at different points. Melbourne Victory 5, Melbourne City 1. Tell us about Fiorina. Tell us about Fiorina Alaria, because 4 goals in a Melbourne derby.
Yeah, so this game is not as one-sided as the 5-0 scoreline suggests. It was actually a fairly even contest. Victory are a bit more tactically flexible than City at this point. I think their players are slightly older, slightly more experienced at NPL level, and they've got A-League women's players that are slightly more experienced too. City's ones haven't been recalled in the squad. So they can play on the counter-attack and they can switch it up in games a bit more than City can. But City play a really good Melbourne City style of football, what you'd expect from them. The ball's on the deck, they zip around quickly, not as clinical. That's where this game was actually won by Victory. Was Iria is what the commentary team call her. So I'm going to assume that's correct. She is outstanding. Like, she's a really good finisher, and she has been since she was a kid. I think I first saw her in 2023 playing for Calder United, where she controlled this ball over her shoulder with the outside of her foot, then flicked it over the keeper. But she's now 19, and she's getting better and better and better constantly. And this game, it was one curling ball from. She's on the wing, so she curls one in from the wing. Then she makes a run behind the defence for another one, and then she scores another one. I can't remember how the third one happened. But then the fourth one was from the byline. She somehow curled it at the far post again. It came off both posts and went in. And she says that was an accident, but I don't really know what else she could have been doing. So I think when you're hot, and things are falling right for you. But she's an exciting player, really good, small but fast and powerful winger with a lot of tricks and a lot of really good tight ball control. Another one that I'm surprised didn't get a go at Victory this season when we had injuries on the wing. She could have just given them a spark, you never know. And probably another criticism of my team this season that they didn't play the young players when things weren't going well. Give them a shot and just see what they can do. Because what she can do is outstanding. She's a really exciting player. And she's getting better. And I think that's what this game was what made this performance special. Was 3 of those goals came in 6 minutes. So she just went bang, bang, bang and settled the game. And there's not many players that can take 3 chances in 6 minutes and make them count like that. So, yeah, really, really exciting player. Gets targeted a lot by the opposition, and she just keeps going. She's going to be, hopefully, seen at A-League women level a lot more in the future.
Yeah, so 56th, 58th, and 62nd minutes were her second, third, and fourth goals after a 5th minute opener. Just an insane, work ratio. Plenty of action, of course, across the NPL this weekend, as well as A-League women. Round 22 action. So there's football everywhere you want to look. I'll obviously be keeping my eye on the NPL women's. New South Wales.
Victoria's got a weekend off, actually.
Oh, Victoria's got the weekend off. I'm Dockety Cup, games. Presumably?
I don't know. I'm still trying to work out the dribble app, to be honest. I don't know.
That is fair enough. But anyway, regardless, there's plenty of competitions. Plenty of games to keep your eye on. We've got a full slate of fixtures up here in New South Wales, so plenty of action for you to keep across. So we'll be back a little bit later this week as well with with Matilda's squad news when that drops. So if you're not already, hit that little subscribe button, hit the little notification bell, and you'll get notified of exactly when we drop that. Kieran, it's been a blast to have you here. Thank you so much for jumping on this week.
Thanks for having me. Love to be on.
It's been a pleasure having you here. As I said, we'll be back to talk about that Matilda's squad. But for Kieran Yap, my name is Poletti. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.